Hello folks, this is Aidan Jonah, Editor-in-Chief of the Canada Files here, bringing you a very important story, and it is a doozy. So let's get into it. So you have this story, and it first came to my attention because of Sam Cooper, a Global News national investigative reporter, sharing this story from the National Post. And I'll get into Cooper later, but let's get into the story now. What's being alleged right now is this Toronto mayoral candidate who's very much an NDP-friendly type, the former wife of Jack Layton, who passed away in 2011. So she's very much a hardcore social democrat. Even groups like the Canada-Hong Kong link, which is a very strongly anti-China group, won't jump to the conclusion that's being made by this article. And that article conclusion is that there's a air of suspicion around Olivia Chow meeting with this allegedly China-aligned group. It's a ridiculous thing, especially because, as this article notes, she's been part of a number of pro-Hong Kong rioter events. These Hong Kong riots, which were very much funded and backed by the West, and of course they failed once there was a national security law that blocked the ability of more of these Western funds to get into the country for malign aims. So the group that's being targeted yet again is, and really the focus is coming due to the fact that Chow met with them, is the Council of Newcomer Organizations. Of course, it had the nerve to actually criticize the rioters in the Hong Kong SAR, and also a parliamentary motion that was accusing China of doing a genocide against its Muslim Uyghur community in Xinjiang. Now, of course, both of these points are correct. They're on the money here, so it's ridiculous. But of course, this is very much a National Post. It's a hard right-wing conservative paper. It's not a shock. So what you're seeing now also, right, you got Charles Burton, who's complaining that she's associating with the council at all. And this element that has to be remembered, right, is that this is very much a community group. If a politician, especially like a social democrat politician, wants to reach people, they have to go into the community and connect with people. So she went ahead and met with them. She met with the council, and you can very clearly see that allies of her and Chow herself is not endorsing the politics of this organization, which obviously I think are strong politics, and it's just hysteria against them for daring to speak out. But it's just, you look through this article, right, and it's very much any sort of minor association with folks that dare to challenge Canadian imperial narratives about China. They get punished for it, for daring to do this. Look at this now. Like, you get just a gift of a porcelain vase, well wishes for her election, and all of a sudden, it's danger. Why is she engaging with them? Why is she connecting with them at all? She should never engage with them. That's what they're essentially saying in this, right? And then you have ASPI, which is just a U.S. Really funded proxy organization to smear China, just throwing some wild claims at this organization that's being targeted, Council of Newcomer Organizations, is just some sort of front for China. There's this absolute desire to push the idea that any sort of Chinese people in Canada, Chinese Canadians, if they are supportive of China, that it's because they're puppets of China. You can't just have Chinese Canadians actually supporting the Chinese government, because that would really crumble and attack Canadian imperial narratives about evil, bad China. And in terms of Tom Blackwell, this is the reporter, right? Tom Blackwell's already had a record of hating the fact that Chinese Canadians that dissent towards Canadian foreign policy get to have involvement or connections with the elections in Canada. This is an article by William Dare, by the way. I'll read this quote here. In an article in the National Post released on November 25, that'd be 2022, Blackwell infers that the efforts of the Chinese Council for Western Ontario elections comes at Beijing's behest. What is Blackwell's evidence? Again, in the best traditions of McCarthyism, it's all innuendo and no substance. As I said before, Chinese Canadians are punished for daring to speak out because the Canadian state wants them as tokens used to justify the hatred and attacks on China. They love, the Hong Kong quote-unquote democracy people, the Xinjiang freedom, Uyghur genocide hysteria people. Those are the people they like. They don't like Chinese Canadians that dare to speak out. If you look, you take a look at the work that it's doing, right? It's like a community group. You have these community groups, all sort of ethnicities in Canada. These Chinese Canadians shockingly want friendly relations between Canada and China, right? Promoting understanding of China among Chinese people and other ethnic groups. Shocking. Chinese people don't want who appreciate the work of the government in China, the revolutionary government. They don't want that government to be smeared. They will resist that. Will fight back against that. That there isn't free speech. In Canada, realistically, you can technically say whatever you want, but you can be repressed very hard for it. The free speech idea doesn't really factor into it. But I mention it simply because there's this idea of Western free speech, and the actions like this, attacks on these Chinese Canadian groups, I think really tells you all about what it is really. You're free to speak if you say things that are useful for the state, things that help the state in pursuing its policies abroad. That's when you have freedom to actually speak. You don't really have freedom to speak when you're challenging the state and its foreign policies. Now, I want to take you to a little bit more context too in terms of Sam Cooper, because this is the guy who shared the reporting initially. So Sam Cooper's been caught in mistaking reporting already. There's this idea of Trudeau being briefed about 2019 election candidates that were supposedly, obviously crap, funded by China, which again they were not. But Cooper got caught in that story already. And then also with someone like Sam Cooper, if you take a look at his sourcing, he really relies on RCMP, CSIS, DEA, U.S. national security. That's where he relies upon, right? That's where his sourcing comes from. He has this hysterical book, Willful Blindness. This is from Steve Lala, this article back in 2021. I want to read another quote for you. Instead of providing a critique of capitalism, the economic system that encourages corruption, Cooper points the finger at Chinese criminals, supposedly in the service of the Communist Party of China, who have allegedly brought up Canadian housing units to infiltrate the nation's superstructure with drugs and spies and destroy Canada from within. Even further than this, Sam Cooper's been caught in stuff before in terms of perpetrating just intelligence narratives, because let's be real here, that's where he gets his stories. As much as this is anonymous source crap, it's this. People like him are useful proxies for intelligence agencies. Consortium News had to sue Global News because Sam Cooper just uncritically took the word of the Canadian Communications Security Establishment, that is CSE, and this narrative was that since Consortium News was reporting on Chrystia Freeland's Nazi grandfather, that was a cyber campaign. They're part of a campaign directed by Russia. If you look at the state of affairs, the lawsuit filed by Consortium News back in January 2020, if you look at the lawsuit, it accused Global News of entering into a business conspiracy with CSE to link critics of Chrystia Freeland to Russia as a way of discrediting those critics and protecting themselves. So you have this already. So you've already seen all of these things about Sam Cooper too, right? You see Han Dong, an MP who was formerly in the Liberals. You had this claim that pushed by an article of Cooper's where Dong supposedly told a Chinese diplomat in February 2021 that releasing Michael Covert and Michael Spavor would release the Conservatives. Of course, these two actually were spies. But that's a whole other story, right? This wasn't proven, and what happened is the Globe and Mail actually confirmed that they didn't run the story because they didn't feel confident in the sourcing of it. They didn't feel like they could source it well enough, and this actually led to a lawsuit, as I mentioned. Davide Mastracci did a good article all the way back in March where he talked a bit more in more depth about the allegations against him. And yeah, at this point on the Globe and Mail, they couldn't review a transcript or tape with Dong's call with the Chinese diplomat. So you have Sam Cooper, you have Tom Blackwell, you have all these types. At the end of the day, there's a lot of innuendo. There's a lot of smears. You have, with Olivia Chow, of course, the social democrat, anti-China, anti-communist type. It's in my view, it's all about getting her to be another person who will just say bad things about China, attack China, just so she can get that off her back. That's my view on the situation. And realistically, even Cooper sharing it is, it couldn't be a more fitting thing because, of course, Cooper has done so much terrible reporting and that has done very much damage and, has really been at the borderline service of intelligence agencies. And you look at how closely the guy works with them. So you have this whole cacophony of utterly disgraceful reporting that really hurts Chinese Canadians. It's just this visceral anger at Chinese Canadians daring to be involved anywhere close to elections, right? Being anywhere involved in politics where they actually challenge the status quo about Canadian foreign policy, or even just want good relations with China and want to promote an understanding of China that isn't just flat out demonization, that talks about the positive things that China has brought to the world. It's sheer anger for that. It's sheer hatred. And these right-wing forces despise that fact. Despise the fact that Chinese Canadians aren't just entirely meekly standing down and just being tokens for imperial aggression against China. So if you value the journalism that the Canada Files does, and if you appreciate this analysis, please consider setting up a monthly or annual donation for the Canada Files. That is a link in our video description. You'll see it right there. Okay, folks, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Goodbye.